there was this special group of movies called the American Film Theater. In 1990, Lee Remick was supposed to be dying. Doctors said her cancer was too bad to cure, but she wasn't ready to give up. She took one last job in Russia, working with the mysterious actor Maximilian Schell. During those freezing nights in Leningrad, something happened between them. Her personal diary tells a story that nobody saw coming. The things she wrote about Schell were so personal and deep that her family tried to hide them. But the truth always comes out somehow. In 1942, Lee Remick was 7 years old when her world fell apart. She had grown up in Quincy, Massachusetts, in a house that looked perfect. Her dad, Francis Edwin Frank Remick, went to Harvard and was a clothing store owner who had Remick's department store. The family had money, safety, and felt like life was good. Then her parents got divorced. Back then, divorce was really shameful and often left women with nothing. The split tore the family apart, leaving Lee old enough to feel the pain, but too young to get it. That moment changed her forever, making her have problems with feeling safe and staying committed. Years later, those old hurts would show up in the troubled women she played in movies. After the divorce, Lee's mom was left alone with 2 kids, Lee and her older brother, Bruce. It was the 1940s. Single moms had almost no help. Gertrude used to be a stage actress, but acting didn't promise steady money, and she had nothing else to count on. She packed up their lives in Quincy and moved to New York City. It was like going from being comfortable to being almost poor. Every day was a battle to survive. She tried out for acting jobs against thousands of other hopeful people while trying to make some kind of stable life for her kids. Money was so tight that sending Lee to a fancy private school took huge sacrifice and maybe help from family or people with money. Watching her mom's struggle left a deep scar on Lee. She learned to be really independent, but also got scared of not having enough money that would make her work non-stop in her career. In Manhattan, Lee went to Miss Hewitt's classes, one of the fanciest girls' schools in the city. It was the early 1940s, and her classmates were daughters of rich business owners, politicians, and high society people. They talked casually about summers in the Hamptons and trips to Europe. Lee's life was totally different. She lived with the constant fear of running out of money. The school's address, 45 East 75th Street, put it right in the middle of wealth near the famous Frick collection. But for Lee, it was a world she could see but never really be part of. She was probably on reduced tuition or a scholarship, which only made her feel more like an outsider. That feeling of being stuck between 2 worlds would later help her when playing characters trapped between social classes. Around this time, Lee trained in ballet at the Swoboda School of Dance under Maria Swoboda, who used to be in the Bolshoi Ballet. Swoboda was a tough teacher, and her Russian methods were brutal. Lee practiced for hours, pushing her body beyond its limits. She danced until her feet bled, until her ballet shoes were soaked in red. But she never stopped. The training wasn't just about dance steps. It demanded showing real emotions through movement. Lee's obsession with being perfect became a way to survive. The discipline she learned there stayed with her, helping her in Hollywood when she had to do stunts, tough conditions, and long filming days without complaining. There was another weird part of her family story. Lee's great-great-grandmother, Eliza Duffield, had been an English-born preacher in Rondeau, New York. Something almost unheard of for a woman back then. She started her own church, going against both religious and social rules. This legacy of moral authority and rebellion affected Lee, who often played women torn between wanting something and doing what's right, like in Days of Wine and Roses and Anatomy of a Murder. By 1952, Lee was 17 and desperate to get into show business. When she saw an ad for dancers at the Music Circus in Hyannis, Massachusetts, she lied about her age to get the job. It was a dangerous risk. If anyone had found out she was still a student at Miss Hewitt's, it could have ended her career before it started. But she got the job, fooling experienced professionals and starting her career. A year later, she made her Broadway debut in Be Your Age. It was a disaster. The play opened on January 14, 1953, and closed 4 days later after only 5 shows. The failure was crushing, and she almost lost her place at Miss Hewitt's, because students weren't allowed to work in professional shows during the school year. After much discussion, the school let her stay. Ironically, the flop got her an agent and new auditions. Her real big break came in May 1956. She was performing in All Expenses Paid on Robert Montgomery Presents when Elia Kazan happened to be watching TV. He wasn't looking for talent, but something about her caught his eye. That lucky moment changed everything. He cast her in A Face in the Crowd, 1957, choosing her over established Hollywood stars. A risky move for a director. Fresh off the success of On the Waterfront. To get ready for her role, Lee went to Arkansas 3 weeks before filming. She lived with a local family, trained with high school majorettes, and practiced baton twirling until she could perform with 60 local girls. Filming had 5,000 extras in the August heat, each making $1 an hour. By the time the cameras rolled, Lee didn't just play a Southern majorette. She had become one. Lee Remick's rise in Hollywood was as fast as it was complicated. After her breakout in A Face in the Crowd, the studio moved quickly to sign her. 20th Century Fox offered her a 7-year contract that looked good on paper, about $1,700 to $500 for every 10-week filming period, which would be close to $180,000 today, but the contract came with heavy restrictions. She could only make one movie a year for Fox, and they alone decided which roles she would play. More often than not, she was pushed into basic Southern belle parts that showed off her blonde hair and blue eyes, but did little for her range as an actress. Important directors like Billy Wilder and John Huston had wanted to cast her, but Fox's exclusivity rule shut the door on those opportunities. Over time, she started to feel trapped. That same year, on August 3, 1957, she made a personal decision that would add to that feeling of being stuck. At just 21, she married TV director William Arthur Colleran. He had worked on Your Hit Parade, The Dean Martin Show, and The Judy Garland Show. It seemed romantic, but friends later called it a bad match. He was controlling, she was ambitious, and their worlds clashed. They had 2 children, Catherine in January 1959 and Matthew in June 1961. But the marriage got tense. Gossip writers like Hedda Hopper reported on their public fights at Hollywood parties. By 1965, Remick was telling friends she felt she was living in 2 prisons, her Fox contract and her marriage. The divorce came in November 1968, dragging on into 1969 with custody and money fights. Work brought its own battles. In the long, hot summer in 1958, she played Eula Varner alongside Orson Welles and Paul Newman. Filming began in Louisiana in September 1957 with a budget of $1,624,000, but the set quickly turned chaotic. Welles had taken the role mainly to pay off a $150,000 tax debt, and he often clashed with director Martin Ritt. Arguments would last for hours, stopping production. Welles showed up late, skipped learning his lines, and sometimes played mind games with the cast. Remick, still young and amazed by his reputation, found him scary. One day, during an intense scene, Welles crossed a line with inappropriate advances, leaving her in tears. The incident was quietly covered up by the studio, but it hurt her trust in Hollywood. A year later, she faced Otto Preminger on Anatomy of a Murder. He was famous for his temper, for screaming at actors, for tearing down even experienced performers. Lana Turner had been cast first, but left after a fight over costumes. Columbia Pictures worried they couldn't find anyone to work with Preminger. Remick took the part, and to everyone's surprise, she was the one actress who wouldn't break under his anger. She learned every line, hers and everyone else's, so she was always ready. When Preminger exploded over lighting or makeup, she met him with a calm stare and measured answers. Over time, he respected her for it. James Stewart even joked she had civilized Otto. That film also gave her one of her most famous moments. In a courtroom scene, her character Laura Mannion slowly took off her glasses and shook her hair loose while on the witness stand. The moment was both vulnerable and suggestive, and critics called it electric. Some censorship boards tried to cut it. The performance kept audiences guessing. Was she a true victim or manipulating the jury? She said she drew on Marilyn Monroe's softness and Lauren Bacall's confidence to create that balance. Her role in Anatomy of a Murder came about because of the wardrobe fight with Lana Turner, but it made her a star. She was only 24, and though the film was black and white, critics swore her red hair, blue eyes, and pale skin seemed to glow on screen. Studios loved this and started putting her in roles that leaned on her sensuality, which over time frustrated her. In Wild River in 1960, she worked with Montgomery Clift, who had been badly hurt in a car accident years earlier. She described him as like a wounded bird and admitted she wanted to take care of him. This wasn't simple attraction. She was watching the slow decline of a gifted actor. The experience taught her that great acting often came from showing real weakness, and it stayed with her. As the 1960s went on, she became disappointed with Hollywood. She once said,